Hi, everybody. This is Jessica McAtee, and I am an Enneagram life coach, which is just a fancy way of saying that I am a life coach that works specifically with personalities. And the reason that's important is because we have each been born into a certain personality. It was not created by our upbringing or by our parents or our siblings or the faith we were raised in or anything like that. But we are born with personalities that are brain-based, and those personalities tend to see the world in very specific ways consistently with each type. And what I am all about is helping us find practical ways to understand the personality that we have been born with, and also understand how we're different from other people born with other personalities, and how we can practically apply that knowledge to our lives to have a more enhanced experience of life, because all of us have blind spots and things that happen to us because of our come from, because of the way the world appears to us. So today I have called this lesson Healthy Changes First. And let me say, I am not a doctor. I am not a psychologist. I am not a psychiatrist. I cannot diagnose any kind of mental disorders. I cannot prescribe medications, and I have zero experience in those fields. I'm a coach. So what I can do, though, and what I aim to do, and what this video is about today, is about empowering you to do what you can do before turning to medical solutions. And, medications are great, and medications help a lot of people do a lot of things. I mean, thank God for medicine. But it might not be a surprise to you that somehow in America, the pharmaceutical industry has really, I don't know, a lot of people are on medications for a lot of things. I'll just say that. And what I am hoping to get across today is this idea. It's not a novel idea, but it's an idea of doing what is yours to do first before seeking a diagnosis or medication. All medications have side effects. All medications affect the way you show up in life, especially when they are dealing with your emotional patterns in your brain, and they change your experience of life, and they change how you show up. And for some people, they are critical for sure. But I have the sense, and maybe you do too, that first of all, it almost seems like everybody has a diagnosis. And it's funny because as a coach, and when I work with new clients, a lot of times one of the first things they'll do is give me a list of their diagnoses. And the thing is, I don't work in those fields, and I'm totally happy to hear them out, but that's not my come from. And on another plane, what is interesting to me is that everybody's got something these days, right? Because if everybody's got something, then is it something, or is it just normal? Maybe some of these struggles are normal given our lifestyles. So what I'm saying is, for instance, if we don't eat well, and if we don't exercise in the daytime, we probably won't sleep well at night. Now, you could also have, problems sleeping because of 1,000 other things, but we know that if you don't use your body during the daytime, it's not going to be tired at nighttime. So part of what really fueled today's talk is I'm an avid reader, and last week I read or maybe 2 weeks ago, I read this really great book, Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemke. And she is, the subtitle is Finding Balance in the Age of Indulgence. And she's an MD, and she's a psychotherapist, and she specializes in clients with addictions and helping people break addictions, which of course this day and age, and thus the name Dopamine Nation, she's saying that we are like addicted to anything and everything. And all of us are addicted, whether it be sugar or romance novels or porn or exercise or well, of course, drugs and alcohol, or sleeping pills, or pain pills, or you name it, we are addicted to all sorts of things. And one of the things that I learned from this book, I sort of had a sense of this, and maybe you did too, but one of the things that is becoming apparent is people who take medications for various complications, which a ton of Americans do right now. So, like anxiety pills, insomnia pills, people who have focus challenges, ADD, ADHD, people who have chronic pain and are taking painkillers. Here's what's crazy. People who have been on those medications for a length of time typically have worse symptoms of the original issue after prolonged use of the medication. In other words, if you have a hard time sleeping and you start taking sleeping pills, you're not going to sleep any better. You will up front, but as time goes on, you still won't sleep any better. And you might need new pills, or you might need new medication, and so it's like a never ending ball and chain. And then you have to take these pills. I know I had some surgery a few years ago, and when I was in the hospital, they gave me melatonin. Not a big deal, right? I didn't used to take that. They gave it to me a few days in the hospital, little gummies, and I did sleep better. And so when I got out of the hospital, I was like, oh, I'll keep taking these. And I did sleep better, but then I started getting these wacky dreams, like really bad dreams, like terrifying nightmares. And I just realized, and then I was like, I felt scared to stop taking them because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to sleep. Anyway, long story short, I stopped taking them, and I'm not against melatonin. I know lots of people that take them for migraines and for different things, but, I can see myself how easily I was like, oh, well, now I'll just take this every night before I go to sleep. And, it happens easily, and it happens to all of us because our brains like dopamine, and dopamine is anything that makes us feel good or makes us feel like we're achieving something. But here's the thing. Our brains naturally, and she talks about this, but our brains naturally produce dopamine when we do things that are healthy. So when we have a healthy diet, when we get sufficient sleep, when we have vigorous exercise and we're active on a daily basis, when we learn how to pray and meditate and have a faith that we can practice, or somehow have hope in the world and humanity that can help manage stress naturally, we know that you can improve your relationships. That goes a long way for your mental health. I'll use the term mental health here. There are dozens of ways that we can improve our mental health before we turn to medications. Meaningful and fulfilling work. That's another thing. It's such a gift to get out of bed and have something that you care about, that you're working towards. It is wonderful to enjoy your work and enjoy your lot in life. That's a great gift. Also, what this channel is for, and what I do as a coach, is helping people find serious self-explorations of themselves, like understanding how you are, back to those personalities that I mentioned. Once you understand how you're wired, it unlocks so much more about why you see things the way you do and why the world looks the way it looks, and also how you can improve your experience. Okay, so let's shift this into Enneagram. What does this have to do with Enneagram? Well, all 9 Enneagram types in their disintegrated states, disintegrated here, what we're saying is the Enneagram breaks people into 9 different personality types. And when we are healthiest, when we are the healthiest version of ourselves, we actually don't really need our ego that much. Our ego being our personality type, our Enneagram type. Your Enneagram type is your ego. Everybody has an ego. People like to call some people egotistical. No, we're all egotistical. We all have an ego. We all have a story that we're living into. And when we are the healthiest version of ourselves, we can see right through those stories, and we see them for what they are, and that disempowers them. You start realizing like, oh, I don't have to be the funny girl. I don't have to always be active and on the go and experiencing all the things, because I have contentment in my faith inside of myself. I don't need to seek joy outside. I have it within. I have it in my spirit. That's for type 7. That's one of the shifts. So that's what we look like at our healthiest version of ourselves. We don't really need our Enneagram number, and it might even be hard for people to see what number we are when we're at our healthiest self, because we're just not using all the tricks and little things that the numbers do that are dead giveaways. Dead giveaway. So, but on the opposite end of all of the health levels for each type are pathologies. And okay, so I'm getting this. The rest of this talk today now is based on Riso and Hudson. They developed something called levels of development for each Enneagram type. And at the lowest level, each type very often has a common pathology. And when we are not healthy is when we most identify with our Enneagram type. So, in other words, when you're stressed out, you will show up more like your type than when you're doing really well. So, at the very lowest levels, when we're really identified with our type, when we think it is who we are, that's what I mean by identified. You forget that you are a child of God, independent of your Enneagram number, and you subconsciously lean on these tricks and patterns and old neural pathways that your type has been playing in the background subconsciously since you were a child. But in that place, we all identify with our type, with our ego, and we're basically a slave to its false narratives and to its compulsions and to its delusions. So how do you get out of that? Well, one of the ways is working with an Enneagram coach, right? Like or reading books about it or watching videos about it and starting to learn what that looks like when you're stuck in your type. And then the highest level of each type, as I just mentioned, is the freedom from that type. And here you can move around without restraints or the old stories that you had. You make decisions in your life in real time. You're healthiest here. You are conscious and you're free and you're able to not be just beholden to your one type, but you might say, I think right now, even though I'm a type 7, I think this situation would call for me to bring discipline out from my Enneagram Type 1, or maybe I should focus more like my Enneagram Type 5, or maybe I should go to my Type 6 and become a little bit more detail-oriented and more of a team player, right? So you can shift around when you're healthy and you're not just stuck in your own type. And that's why Enneagram is a dynamic system rather than a static system. Dynamic here meaning even though your core type stays your core, that as you learn the types and you learn about yourself, you can move into other types when it is more appropriate to show up like they're showing up. Consciousness here, when we move to a greater level of consciousness, we are free from these pathologies. Okay, you don't have to respond to your Enneagram type once you see what it's doing and how it's confusing you and making you think the world is a certain way. So I'm going to go through today what each of the 9 types looks like at their worst. And you may wonder, what is the benefit of that? Well, it's a very practical thing, because another thing I've noticed is when I work with clients of a given type, they will often tell me they suffer from this disorder or that disorder, but they're mostly self-diagnosing. Okay. They haven't even, or their partner has told them that they're this, or their parent has told them that they're this. A lot of them don't even have it from a medical doctor. Right. But that's another thing that's going on now. Everybody is like diagnosing everybody, especially their exes. Like, let's stop that. How about we all just need to learn about ourselves and get our egos under control? That doesn't take any medication, but it does take some serious self-work. So the reason I'm going through what the bottom levels of all of the types look like is so that you can see what your type looks like at its worst. And if you're one of those people that has been self-diagnosing and saying, oh, well, I definitely have OCD, I definitely have ADHD, I definitely must be bipolar, I bet I have dissociative disorder, just stop, learn your type, and learn how to get out of your type and do all the work, right? Like doing the natural work first, right? Back to the title of this, healthy changes first. Let's do all of the work within your possible realm or reach before having to go to a doctor. Because look, if you go to a doctor and you ask them for medication, a lot of times, because they're trying to be helpful, they may very well give you a script. And it's hard on your body. It doesn't help you to expand yourself and grow as a human. Now, I know there's a time and a place for that. But like I said, it seems now like everybody's going to the doctor and getting medicated for all sorts of things, and even you can see these people and you can see obvious lifestyle issues that you're like, I think maybe if you would adjust that, then that would be a little bit better. So I want to show you what each of the types looks like at their very, very lowest, so that maybe when we get to your type, you go, oh, maybe I don't even have a disorder. Like maybe this is just what I look like when I'm unraveled and unhinged. And maybe if I do some personality work, I could correct this without medications, without a doctor's appointment. That's where I'm coming from. And again, let me stress, I'm not giving medical advice. I am not a doctor. And if you think you need to go see a physician, then go see a physician. I'm not trying to stop you from that, but I am trying to maybe let you know that you might not be as far gone as you think you are. Maybe you're just a normal type 4, or maybe you're a normal type 8. Maybe you're a normal type 3. Maybe this is just what you look like when you're stressed out. And if you know that about yourself, then maybe you can take some steps as you see yourself stressed out to make your life a little bit better. Also, Riso and Hudson, when they talk about the very lower levels of each type, for various types, they mention suicide tendencies and also drug and alcohol abuse. I have taken that out of today's lesson. I've taken it out for 2 reasons. Number one, at the end of the day, anybody can be suicidal, right? It doesn't matter. Everybody feels lonely sometime. Everybody feels sad. Everybody feels hopeless. If that is ever you, please reach out to a friend. Please call 911. I didn't want to put suicide on any number because I just think there's other things going on if you're at that level. And then the reason I took drug and alcohol abuse out is, as an Enneagram coach, I also sometimes work with people in recovery for drug and alcohol addiction. And frankly, anybody of any type can become an addict, of a substance addict. Also a gambling addict, right? Or a pornography addict, or a video game addict, or back to Dopamine Nation. That's her point, is that everybody is susceptible to dopamine hits. It's really easy to become a gambling addict, right? Like it's true, it's easier for some types over others, but addiction itself can happen to anybody, and even substance addiction. So I'm not going to talk about those. Again, there are places to reach out if you do have a substance abuse problem. Okay, so I'm going to kind of zip through this pretty quickly, but I'm going to tell you what the literature says about each type. So for type 1s, obsessive compulsive disorder, right? You can see this. This isn't hard to figure out, right? Because they like perfection. They don't like wrong. They like everything being right. They can be depressive. Well, we know type 1s, when they're stressed out, go to type 4, which tends to be more melancholy. They're punishing. They speak down to others. They can be quite critical and mean. When 1s are not doing well, they become very, very critical. Nervous breakdowns. 1s just sometimes get so wound so tight because they're trying to get it right. Day and night. Oh, sorry, I got really poetic there. But they really will go through extremes to get the wrongdoers out of the way, right? They could get so locked onto that. And again, if a 1 gets like that, it's like, hey, maybe do some meditations, maybe do some prayer, maybe set something down, right? Let's go back to what the growth point for each number is. For 1s, it's to go to 7. It's like, maybe you can relax a little bit, maybe set some of your to-do list aside, maybe do some self-care to get yourself out of that lower level. For type 2, type 2s notice a lot of resentment and anger. Actually, they probably don't notice it, but it is happening. And it's allowing them to excuse their poor behavior towards others because they feel abused and victimized. When they are at their very lowest, they have a somatization of resentment, which can create chronic health disturbances, meaning they are holding a lot of their tensions in their body, and rather than letting it go or working through things. And Constant stress, constant adrenal stress will give you health issues. So chronic issues can help happen for them. Histrionic personality disorder, factitious disorder. This is where they fake illnesses and symptoms to get attention, or possibly, what is it, Munchausen syndrome? I think it's called that. That's not in the, well, it is in here because factitious disorder can also be towards someone else. So it's like possibly imposing this on either their child or their partner or their caregiver. It's like a hypochondriac, right? Like saying that they're sick all the time and they've always got this wrong with them and that wrong with them. And a lot of that is because they're just simply not taking care of themselves, right? Their growth point is to go to point 4. And at point 4, they will start thinking about what they need. They will start thinking about, no, I shouldn't say thinking. They will start moving towards what it is that they actually need rather than being so hyper-focused on others. Because that hyper-focus on others is feeding their ego. That is the ego of a 2. I've got to help. I've got to help. They won't be able to do anything without me. That's the ego. Stop that. The world will keep going without your help. I promise. Take care of yourself. Go take a bubble bath. Go exercise. Go eat a carrot. Do something that's good for you. Drink a glass of water. Let's go to point 3. All 3 of the assertive types can be connected with narcissism. This 3, 7, and 8. For type 3s, remember, they're trying to win. And when they don't perceive that they are winning, they can become psychopathic. They can be on a mission to destroy their competitors, anybody or anything that's reminding them of where they're not winning or where they're not the best. Really ticks them off, and they can become very vindictive and work to sabotage the happiness and the joy of others. Really kind of out of envy. And especially if they have the sense that those people juxtaposed with them are making them look bad. They'll start getting very real sneaky and real mean and just really psychopathic. That's the word, right? So for 3s, the growth point is to go to 6, and that is to actually come up with a plan, to think through what it is that would improve your situation. And maybe you don't really need to look great. Maybe you just put some thought into your processes and get better at what you're doing, and don't worry about what everybody else is doing, because it's not making them any more lovable just because they're doing better than you. You are lovable as you are. We get to point 4. When 4s are at their very bottom level, they are narcissistic. They can be avoidant and depressive. Avoidant here, they're a withdrawn type. 4s are withdrawn. So as avoidant types, they can kind of crawl into a dark hole of despair and victimhood, feeling perpetually victimized, hopeless. 4s tend to do a lot of self-sabotaging, self-harm, lots of emotional breakdowns, very dramatic. A 4's growth point is to go to point 1, which is to do something physical, because 4s can get stuck in their hearts, in their emotions. And so if you're a 4 and you find yourself at rock bottom, get out and do something for somebody else. Be constructive and serve the community. Be dutiful. Even if it's something as simple as walking your dog, or helping your neighbor, take her garbage out or something. Just doing something in service to others so that you don't only think about yourself. We actually know that people who think about themselves all the time are more depressed. And people who are higher in neuroticism, which is a character trait from the Big 5 that has to do with feeling negative emotions. If you feel negative emotions all the time, you're also thinking about yourself way, way, way too much. And the world does not revolve around you, sweetheart. And it doesn't revolve around any of us. So when you're in a pit of despair, stop thinking about yourself and go do something. That's the key for 4s. We get to type 5. When they're at their worst, they are schizoid and avoidant. Schizotypal personality disorder. Psychotic breaks from reality. Again, they're another avoidant type. So I'm sorry, they're a withdrawn type, which is why they become avoidant. They can really start living in a kind of a crazy universe that doesn't exist. Fives have a four wing. I mean, they're right next to four, so they can get they're in their heads, but in that space, they're actually overthinking. They can get lost in worlds of aliens and UFOs or like alternative universes, but nihilism and dark can happen in that space. So for fives, their growth point is to 0.8. It's similar to what's happening at 4. When you're in 5 and you can't get out of your head, if you're at low 5, move to 8. Do something. Get into your body and get active. Get out of your head and into your body and out into the real world. We go to type 6. Sixes, of course, are fear-based, and they're always perpetually terrified of punishment and being at fault. That's the worst thing to a 6, to feel like she was the reason something went wrong. She does not want to get blamed. And she can get quite hysterical trying to defend herself. The thing is, though, often because of that, 6s are hypersensitive. And because they tend to blame other people a lot, they tend to think other people are blaming them. Not necessarily true. They just live in a blame world. Not everybody lives in a world of blame. But 6s tend to live in a world of blame. Also can be quite high in neuroticism, that negative emotion swirl. So in this space, they get very shamed. They feel ashamed. They're self-degrading. They can be linked to passive-aggressive and paranoid disorders. Of course, paranoid disorder, right? Because that's their anxiety. They become very paranoid. Bipolar is common for 6s. Again, here's what I'm telling you. I'm not saying if you're a 6, you have bipolar disorder. But I'm saying you might have these mood swings. And somebody who knows something about bipolar disorder might, off the cuff, say, oh, I think you're bipolar. You're not necessarily bipolar. But yes, 6s have mood swings. Even without being a pathology, it's a habit that 6s can be in. And all of these are habits that the numbers can fall into. I'm not saying that everybody's got a pathology, because I definitely don't think that's the case. I'm actually trying to make an argument for the contrary, which is all of us, even without having a diagnosis, can show up this way if we are this number. So do what you can about understanding yourself before you medicate, right? Do what you can, please, before you medicate. Type 7, again, narcissistic because they're assertive types. Easily feel stuck and panicked. That's because 7s are trying to escape their anxiety by having fun and being distracted. And the experience of not being able to have fun makes them feel stuck and claustrophobic. So claustrophobia is common in this space. Manic depressive, despairing, impulsive, all sorts of harmful impulsive behaviors, bipolar and histrionic disorder, dramatic and attention seeking. That's what happens at the low end of 7. 7s grow by becoming focused at 0.5, which is to move into 0.5, calm down, get centered, and logically think about what's going on, what it is they need, and what kind of healthy behavior, healthy dopamine hit, right? Like, how can we have a healthy dopamine hit rather than going and doing something really dangerous or really stupid or careless? Type 8s. Type 8s have a big aversion to being controlled. They're very nervous. Nervous isn't the word. They're very angry about people being unfair in the world and having power. Unfair people having power, especially unfair people having power over them. So if they feel threatened, they will lash out with brutality to destroy anything or anyone that stands against them and doesn't conform to their will. They don't trust people well. They're a reactive type. 4, 6, and 8 are reactive types. I mentioned that in a previous video. And as such, they can be quite explosive. And if they catch a whiff, and it doesn't even have to be a true whiff, but if they have a whiff that you are trying to control them, they can explode. Fiercely defend against surrendering to your will or to the evils that are trying to overpower them. Murderous, vengeful. Eights of vengeance is real in 8 space. Sociopathic. Antisocial personality disorder, which that's not only common in 8s, but that's manipulating, exploiting, and violating others. And like I mentioned, narcissism can happen there too because they're an assertive type. And then we get to type, 8, growth. Growth for type 8 is to go to type 2. And when an 8 goes to 2, she is much more open and loving and personable, relational. She shifts from being a lone ranger fighter who's trying to carry justice alone on her shoulders to loving and caring and interacting with others. And that relational balm is healing. So when an 8 stops trying to defend themselves and protect, they can start giving and serving others, and that can help get them out of that low space. And then we go finally type 9. 9s at their worst are extremely disoriented, catatonic. It's because they're so checked out, right? Like 9s are ostrich, head in the sand. I also learned recently ostriches don't really do that in the wild. I don't even know how that happened that we start saying that, but anyway, you know what I mean by that. That's what happens with 9s. The more stressed out they get, the more checked out they get. Again, that's an ego problem. So when a 9 is at her worst, she'll be extremely disoriented, catatonic. Dissociative order happens here, meaning they dissociate from their bodies. They're hollow ghosts of a person. They are in the room, but they're not in the room. Multiple personalities can happen at 9. That's because of that whole merging thing, because 9s, one of the ego tricks, one of the ways their ego tricks them is since they tap out on themselves, they start finding their identity in and through other people, especially people close to them or people that they admire. And they've abandoned themselves to the point that they take on the personalities of these other people or entities. Schizoid and dependent personality disorders also can happen at low 9. Again, they're a withdrawn type, so that's why you have that schizoid showing up again. And for point 9, of course, growth is to move towards point 3, which is asserting yourself, knowing what it is you want, knowing what you're good at, and that you are important and that your voice does matter. And growing at point 3 is getting back into your body, getting back into yourself and who you are and what you want and what you need to do for your own good. That is growth for point 9. I'm realizing I don't think I said the growth point for 6. But at point 6, it is to get to point 9 with a high point of 9, which is peaceful, calm, trusting that the universe has you, that God has you, that you're not, everybody's not blaming you, and that if you can trust the good can carry you through your panic and your passive aggressiveness. Okay, so again, I guess I would end this with asking you, are you aware of what you look like when you're at your most stressed out state? And do you have some tools that get you out of that, healthy tools that get you out of that? And what kind of healthy dopamine hits can you get aside from medication, aside from addictive behaviors? Can you improve your diet? I mean, you can improve, we can all improve our diets, right? Improve our diets, improve our sleep habits, get some rest before we go to bed, right? Stop screen time early. Not be frantic up late at night, watching TV, watching mindless things. Daily exercise is a way to get natural dopamine hits. Daily prayer, meditation practices, starting your day off with the sun at the sunrise in nature, walks in nature are extremely healing and restorative, and that helps our dopamine levels. Improving your connections with others, having deep connections with those you love. And if you don't have deep connections, then making an effort to find a friend, to find a partner, to find somebody who you can connect with, having meaningful work. If you don't have, and I don't mean that you have to have a job. You don't have to have a job. I don't really have a job. I mean, as a side note, but my husband and I retired 9 years ago, and I do this whole Enneagram coaching thing as part of my retirement because I enjoy this work and it's meaningful for me. If I didn't have something structuring my day, I would certainly lose my mind. Surely I would lose my mind. So finding something that gets you going, that makes it easier for you to get up and to serve the community and the world, that's meaningful and fulfilling work. That's a great way to get dopamine hits. And learning about yourself. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.